You're either going to be an addition energy or you're going to be a subtraction energy. There's no such thing as neutral energy on the basketball team. There's no such thing as neutral energy in their culture. You are either a energy suck or you're an energy generator. And you need to do everything inside your power to take on the responsibility to make sure you're an energy generator.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I have a little bit of a different episode for you. Some of you may know, that know me well, that I actually took a head coaching position for basketball of a new high school in the Coeur d'Alene area called Coeur de Christ. And one of the things that I was super passionate about in bringing to the athletes on my team is some of the different, the knowledge and the people and the relationships that I've made in the business world. And so today's episode is a conversation with an old teammate of mine, Daniel Pearson, who is the current coach for the Carroll College men's basketball Fighting Saints. And he came in to talk to our team about leadership and servant leadership. And this is the conversation that he gave to our basketball team. So I'm going to jump straight into that. So without further ado, we're going to jump into that conversation now. Yeah, so Dan is a good buddy of mine. We went to school at Carroll together. We were both basketball players and also, I think, the only two basketball players that were involved in campus ministry. So we were peer ministers on the freshman dorms when we were juniors and seniors. And then Dan went on to coach at a number of different places, won a national championship in Canada, college basketball in Canada, right?
University level. There's two different. Yeah, the university is the higher level, but yes.
So yeah, he went on to Canada, coached at a number of different schools. He then went over to Europe and coached in a Danish,
English, German, then Danish. So I was in 3 different countries.
So he was different coaches professionally in Europe, and now as of this season is his first season back at Carroll. He just got the head basketball coach at Carroll College in Montana, which is our alma mater, and he just is like probably one of the most knowledgeable as far as like his basketball game combined with his desire to like fully develop the players on his team. So he integrates a lot of stuff from Jordan Peterson, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing came from me collaborating with Dan and trying to come up with what's the best strategy for our team. So our desire to play fast, to press the whole game, that's all stuff that Dan has done when we were at Carroll and then after Carroll, and trying to just be strategic and like be a very numbers driven coach. So I think that's all I got today. He's going to be talking about self-leadership, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about some stuff in that space.
So it's all you.
What's up, fellas? Hey, thanks for taking the time. Chris we had spoken last year while I was coaching over in Denmark. Actually, it was like right when our season had started. I think we were maybe 5 or 6 games in, and we kind of had chopped up some numbers. We're looking at basketball from an analytics side, which was really fun to come back to after the season was done. We had a good season. It was a good professional level. We had guys that starters for Georgetown and Maryland and Wake Forest and Wichita State and Vermont. And we ended up taking second in the playoffs. We won the cup for the first time in club history. And it was fun to like go back after the conversation with Chris and look at the theory kind of retroactively, and then coming back and seeing how things played out after a professional season. And so that was the last time Chris and I really got to spend a ton of time sitting down in a format that was similar to this. But what we had spoken about was, after the end of that, we had largely talked tactics, which is fun. Like, I'm a numbers guy. I like big systems. Right now we're struggling. We got a ton of injuries. We're young, and I've really enjoyed the process of like, what do we have to do to move the system pieces around to stretch it out into a long term, and that's fun. But that's not the biggest passion I have when it comes to basketball. my undergraduate degree, or sorry, my master's degree, I got at Gonzaga, and it was organizational leadership, but it was in a concentration called servant leadership. So the work of Robert Greenleaf, if guys are interested in anything in the leadership realm, he would be. There's 3 or 4 kind of central essays that he has kind of put together that I think would be life changing, just in the terms of how you just structure your world, and when you structure your world this way, things fall into correct lines. And so like there's times that I'll look at stuff on a number side and I'll say, hey guys, like I need us to be selfishly capitalistic about this. And what I mean by that is I want you to be greedy, but what I need you to understand is that the best way to be greedy is by doing things the right way. And so Robert Greenleaf, who was the CEO of AT&T back in the day, there was a point where of the Forbes 50, so the top 50 businesses in the world, over half of them were considered servant-led organizations. And all a servant-led organization is, it takes a collection of 10 values, and it says, hey, listen, if we work through these values, we just have a better business. We sell more of our product, but we do it in a way that is empowering to the employees, gives us opportunities for growth in different areas, doesn't find any sort of ethical conflicts. And I would like to approach basketball in a similar way. And so for me, one of the major dynamics of that is this understanding that if you get culture and individuals inside that culture in really, really healthy places, you're going to win more basketball games. I found that every single player I've coached has a window, right? And it doesn't matter where that window is. Some guys' window is up here, some floors are down here. Being over on the professional side of the ocean for me, I always found that the players who were closest to the ceiling of their windows always were grounded in something else, right? Like if you had a guy, I mean, I can give you some names, they don't mean anything to you, but a guy like Robin Duncan, he played at Vermont, was the runner-up player of the year in the American East. Right now, he is taking a good financial step up after 1 year in this professional world. The dude is like a 6'5", somewhat slow, he's a forward. He played a point guard for us sometimes. But we found after discussing stuff with him last year, he had been in a championship game for 7 years in a row. He was in the American East championship game for 4 years while at Vermont. He was in the state championship game for 2 years in Indiana. And he was in the national championship over in Denmark. So for 7 years in a row, dude's a solid Christian man. He has a good option for past basketball. He's grounded in relationships. And so what that created for him is basketball was just free. He didn't have to worry about, hey man, I got to get this shot because I got to get my points because I got to do this. He was single-minded in his approach. And if you give me 12 Robin Duncans, every single one of those dudes on that team, on the professional side, would make more money the next year. You would also have a team that would win. And so these properly aligned values also are things that if you were purely selfish and all you cared about was making as most money as you could, scoring the points in the most efficient manner possible, winning as many championships, those two things properly align. And I think the cool thing that I've seen in my time and both as a player but also as a coach is that sounds like poetic a little bit. Like I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of nice, but at the end of the day you need a dude, and that dude's got to go get you 40, and I don't care how quality that dude is. And I just haven't found that to be the case. I feel like that's something that may every once in a while hit, but more times than not it's going to be destructive. So what I'm really passionate about as a basketball coach is getting the X's and O's and all the dynamics that lead us to wins, but working towards individuals and saying, hey, listen, if you get these values right, if you learn how to be sacrificial, okay, if you learn how to be present and joyful in that presence, If you can have yourself integration into a higher order in your life, you're going to just be free. You're not going to be worried about anything. You're not going to be stressed. You're not going to have any anxiety, these things. And so finding some sort of overlap is really, for me, where I'm passionate about, because it's kind of having your cake and eating it too. So that's kind of what I want to touch base with you guys about today. And actually, this is a really good place for me to speak to you about it, because I am in a situation right now where this isn't successful yet. We are in a very significant rebuild. And if it wasn't for past experience, you guys should probably mute this and not listen to me at all, because we are not a very good basketball team at the moment. However, I'm pretty convinced that if we keep down this path, we're going to win a lot of basketball games down this line. So where we are at, and we talk about this as a team, we are in the culture development stage, and we like frequently, like we lose a game and I walk in, I'm like, fellas, we are still in the dirt. We are culturing this entire project. And so how you respond right now is a response of what comes out of this dirt. How much are you going to culture from this? And I love the term culture, because people throw it around all over the place. We have the culture of the West. We have, Christian and Catholic culture. We have, whatever it might be. You have a culture in Northern Idaho. You've got an American culture. You've got a Western culture. And that kind of conversation can some days be lost about what actually do we mean when we say the word culture. And I think it's a good thing for us to bring this back. To me, culture is your collective values and the unconscious actions that you inhabit daily that bring you towards benefiting those values. And so a good example right now, because we're leading towards Christmas, you go, what's one of the most significant dynamics of American culture? And someone who's kind of coming in from the outside is like, well, yeah, Christmas is a pretty noteworthy time of American culture. You got Santa, you got the Christmas tree, you got your presents, and that stuff has become something that is fish and water to us. We don't even notice. It's unconscious. Come this time of year, right after Thanksgiving, music changes. You don't think about it any longer. Maybe you do, in the sense of like, oh, nice, I like Justin Bieber, and I get to listen to it right now. Or whatever that might be, that you kind of notice it. But it's something for you growing up that you've done every single year around this time. And you go, well, why? Why is that there? Again, speaking to people that go to a Christian school, it's an easier thing to draw us back to the fact that we are doing this because there's a grand principle at the top of Western society. Okay, there's a grand principle atop of a Judeo-Christian worldview that is structured the way that we live nowadays. And that is that we are celebrating the coming of Christ, right? And so that birth is a highest end value that beneath it, over the course of time, unconscious actions, and some of them get wonky. Why Santa Claus is connected, you probably have to find a lineage story to it. However, it is unconsciously there to purport us and send us towards this higher order value. And so that's what culture is. So when you look at a basketball culture, you are always asking, what are the things that are unconscious to the way that we act? So for us right now, a lot of the dynamics that we're pushed into is our guys don't compete hard enough. They just don't. They don't understand how hard you have to work daily to win a basketball game. And so we go, hey, listen, we need to create a culture of competition. And what that will do is over time, that will structure into a place where guys will have to challenge one another. Hey, like, Steve, you did not box me out in that drill. And that's a weird thing. But I saw that literally last year with going back to a guy named Robin Duncan, who was yelling at his teammate who was on the other jersey in that practice because he got an offensive rebound. And he was competing so heavily that not only did he win the drill, he was upset at his teammate for letting him win that drill too easily, because he understood the compete level of that culture wasn't there. And so it was that challenge and tug of war. And I think the guy I still remember it, EJ Danverville was the guy he got in that fight with. And I remember EJ kind of being like taken back. He's like, what the heck are you yelling at me for? You're on the other team and you won. And it didn't make sense to him because that culture had not become unconscious. If it got to a place where I got that offensive rebound because you didn't box me out, and I'm going to yap at you because you didn't box me out, and you go, yeah, I don't care what jersey you're wearing in this practice, your job is to make me a better basketball player. That is a culture that is directed distinctly towards success and competition, right? So we could talk about 30 different scenarios and 30 different themes that sit inside our culture, but that's not so much the conversation for us right now. I think we could healthfully put out what we think is a good culture, but it means nothing at the stage that we're currently in unless we know how to build that culture. So the building of the culture is really an interesting dynamic. And then how do you sustain it? There's a great line, and you guys have probably heard this. It's the hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, and it becomes that cycle. And how people break out of that and freeze point that hard or strong men and good times and be able to get that is a challenge. And what it requires is it requires individuals to understand what they're protecting, and they step into the role of protecting that. So for us right now, we are in certainly the hard time stage. We are in a situation where the program that I'm in had 3 coaches in 11 months. The guys that I came towards, they lost 8 teammates from last year's team. We replaced those 8 teammates only with 4 new players. Of those 4 new players, 1 kid got cancer and is back home doing chemo. Another guy went home for a funeral. No one has seen him since. It's a strange circumstance. 1 guy tore his MCL. And so we are in a hard time dynamic. And so when we push into what makes our hard time into strong men, and those strong men eventually creating good times for our program, we are in the individual assessment. And this is the really interesting thing that I found in the process. And I don't know what this will do for you guys. Maybe it's something that you've seen as well. But there's a saying, it goes, if you want to kill a dog, give the job of feeding the dog to 3 different people. And the reason why is because the assessment is if it's me, Chris, and his wife, Natalie, all have the responsibility to feed the dog, I'm just going to assume that Chris fed the dog. Chris might be like, I'm just assuming Natalie fed the dog. Natalie's saying, I just assumed Dan fed the dog. And before we know it, the dog hasn't eaten and it's a dead dog. We have this issue where we're walking into a culture build and everyone is just assuming that somebody else is going to take the job. So we have hard times, but when it gets to the point of developing strong men, everyone is just in a space where there's not the alpha who's stepping in and be like, hey, listen, I'll be that strong man, get behind me. And I don't even want that. And that's been the thing that I've kind of pointed towards the players. I don't want an individual leader stepping up. That's not what I want. I don't want a hero to come in and save the game. I don't want one person who's in charge of saying, hey, listen, this drill needs to have a little bit more flow. Quick, get it behind me. I've got the basketball. I don't want that. What I've had to push consistently is that every single person on our team adopts the responsibility of protecting and growing this culture. And that's been really, really, really difficult. Because what ends up happening naturally, and we've had this disrupted, do we have any freshmen in the room right now? Okay, good. How many sophomores? Just 2, okay, the couple in hands. Juniors? And then any seniors? Is it just 1 senior? Okay. So what will organically and naturally happen? If it's not happening here, whatever. It's a miss. People will look to the elder statesmen of a group, the older guys, and they will naturally look towards that person. Generally, the older players are the ones who score the most points. They've had the most experience. They do all these things. So all eyes go towards that person for responsibility. Last shot of the game, maybe it's this person. When that person leaves, there becomes a void. And naturally, the juniors step in, and now they have a different responsibility because the role has shifted. The role has shifted from junior to senior. The sophomores, wherever their natural roles are, organically shift up into that space. And for us, what we're trying to get to is to have a situation where we say, we aren't going through role orders. We aren't saying the senior is going to be the most vocal person because the senior has the most experience. Because they don't. I'm a brand new coach. All of them are freshmen to me. And so that conversation of putting onerous on our guys to say, this drill sucks. There's 15 of you guys involved in this drill. It is 15 of your responsibilities to fix this. I don't want the senior to fix it. I don't want the freshman to be a follower. I want 15 individuals to take responsibility of fixing this drill. We have a drop right before halftime, and I walk into halftime, and I would love a senior to step in. We don't have any seniors right now. I would love a senior to step in and be that voice, but the responsibility needs to be every single person understanding it is their job to build and protect culture. And that's really, really difficult. And that's been the biggest dynamic that we've had to fight with. And we had a situation early in the year where we play fast. It sounds like you guys play fast as well. But it was a circumstance where it's drill to drill to drill to drill to drill. And the guys were exhausted, so they stopped talking. And I got mad. And in the middle of the drill, I said, I need every single one of you to forget your fatigue. I do not care. Forget your fatigue. It does not mean a thing to me at this moment because there's a responsibility right now to finish this drill. And it's your responsibility, it's your responsibility, it's your responsibility. I have a 9-month-old daughter. When she cries in the middle of the night, what she's yelling is, forget your fatigue. I do not care that you are tired. I need food. And so it's my responsibility. So I quickly jump out of bed because I understand and I embrace the fact that that's my responsibility. And so that had become a little bit of our mantra. And it's not all that different. I mean, you look at the hero's journey. I don't know if any of you guys have done any work with Joseph Campbell or anything along that line in literature. But every single hero in a story has a certain crux. They call it the crossing of the first threshold, or sometimes they call it the call to adventure that leads before it. And it's somebody being called, and they have to respond. And for us, in the middle of a basketball culture, that is always most highlighted in the point of fatigue. I'm tired. Okay, well, who's going to communicate? Well, it can't be Joe, and it can't be Steve, and it can't be Alan. Probably these are older names, so whatever the person is in your world that fits into, it has to be yours. And if you're tired, somebody needs to tell you, F your fatigue. Forget your fatigue in this moment. I do not care because somebody has to feed the dog. Somebody has to get up and rock the child back to sleep. Somebody has to protect culture. And we're in that situation where I am, every chance I get, pushing that back onto guys. When guys are insecure, I go, listen, you don't have time to be insecure. We need you. There is nobody else that will fill this role except for you. And that's been for us the mantra that we've been really trying to pour into. It hasn't been going well yet. We're in a spot where guys have been resistant to that dynamic, where they come in and they want somebody else to take on that role, the challenging role. And for us, it's like, no, this culture has to be your culture. So you have to fight for that culture. And the responsibility has to be on you to take on that space, right? And so for us, that is 100% where our battles are as a team. Because we're in this rebuild. And that's probably the biggest thing I would leave for you guys as I start wrapping this up. And then, Chris, you can kind of direct me in this conversation on what you guys want next. But that's the biggest dynamic for us. For you, in whatever the culture build is, you need to embrace the fact that nobody else's job is to do X. It is your job. If it's communication, it's your job. If it's making sure practice is flowy, it's your job. If it's the simple things like boxing somebody out, that's your job. And if you get to a place where every single person, if every strong man in the midst of the hard time of fatigue takes that on, you're going to create a really healthy culture. If you have really healthy culture, then things just become unconscious. You show up and no one has to say, hey, clap, talk. It becomes contagious. And someone goes, yeah, dude, I walk into a Carroll College basketball program culture and that practice, it's flowy and it's fun and it's jamming and it is unconscious. But until you get to it, it's pulling those strands to try to do it, and it's tough. But once you get it, it's unconscious. And it's part of something that is truly a culture. But you do not get there unless individuals take on the responsibility in the midst of fatigue to say, listen, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do that. And you guys should be fighting over it. It's like a really healthy spot. It's like you should be fighting over the first person in the line to make sure it's sharp and clean drill, right? If you guys do that, not only that will make you a really good basketball team, I guarantee that that will make you a future good husband. That will make you a good father. If you're going to be in business or you're going to be a doctor and you understand that the only responsibility is at your hands to resolve X, it'll make you a good businessman, right? And so that would be what I want to leave you guys with. That's 100% where we're at. I'm speaking out loud and thinking out loud as much as I am doing anything else at this moment, because this is where we are at in our space. But it is the empowerment of trying to tell each and every one of you guys that if there's something in the development of culture, no one does it except for you. If you are a bystander in it, then you are a culture and an energy drain. And that's the other conversation we've had with the guys recently. You're either going to be an addition energy or you're going to be a subtraction energy. There's no such thing as neutral energy on the basketball team. There's no such thing as neutral energy in a culture. You are either a energy suck or you're an energy generator. And you need to do everything inside your power to take on the responsibility to make sure you're an energy generator, right? And the only way you can do that is be like, yep, I'll do it. Coach, I got you. We got to shoot in the morning? Cool. I'll be here. So if you do that, it's also going to be the easiest process. So anyway, I don't know how formulated that was. That's a rant. But if there's some questions, Chris, that you want me to direct a little bit towards that, if there's anything that's a little bit more direct to what you guys have going, happy to chat it up a little bit more. But yeah, that's where we're at. That's the battle that the Carroll College Fighting Saints are waging right now.
I'm curious, Dan, because we are the school itself. Can you hear? Okay. Yeah. The school, the Quarter Christ School is this is its third year, right? And this is the first year that we are in the actual Idaho high school athletics. It was they were like independent the last 2 years to prove their organization or whatever. But I feel like we're very much in the same building and culture setting phase. I'm curious what what do you feel like the biggest thing, because you have coached a lot of incoming college freshmen in your time as a coach. What do you feel like is the biggest mental obstacle that a graduating high schooler has to overcome when they move into the college world?
I think the big one is the easiest one is speed and skill and size, right? Like the game's faster, the players are better, and you're just smaller, right? Testosterone has just ran through your blood for 4 years less than the senior that's been there. The bigger dynamic, though, and this is probably something that can be controllable, is what we deem as tough or challenging or fast is all a relative to whatever your highest standard's been, right? So there's certain things when I was a freshman in high school, I was like, man, that was the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. And it felt difficult. Because I've gone through college sports and I've done different challenging things, if I would go back and do that exact same thing, I'd be like, oh, that was easy. Because just the bar is raised, right? And so you get a whole bunch of freshmen that come in and you look at them, you're like, I think you think you're running fast, and I think you think that was hard, but it wasn't. And the reason why is just because that was the hardest thing you've ever had to do. And it's just a matter of upping the bar to the place where everything below it, it's like wearing a sweater, in the middle of winter versus the middle of summer. Like 60 degrees feels different in December than 60 degrees feels in July. 60 degrees in July, you're be freezing. 60 degrees in December, you're like, dude, I'm freaking toasting here. And so it's just wherever your point of conception is and being able to control it. As a young guy that's trying to go into those spaces, I would just simply say that the most important thing you can do is constantly recognize what feels challenging. First day of practice, walking in, be like, oh man, that sprint that we had to run or that drill we had to do, it physically I experienced that in a certain way, and on week 12 I'm experiencing that differently, and then consistently chasing that rabbit higher and higher and higher. So yeah, no, I think that that's a big one, is just whatever the perception of whatever the perception is of challenge. You're like, oh, that seems challenging, and then you get a 22-year-old like, young buck, you haven't seen anything yet. It's like you can do that by just simply pushing that limit every single day and understanding that what you're experiencing now feels like X, and then in 3 months' time, it's going to feel different because you're just in a perception based off of your own experiences there. So that's a big one for freshmen coming in.
All right. Well, we have practice, Dan, in 20 minutes, and we got to drive across town. So
Thank you.
this was awesome.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Good luck,
it.
guys.
Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you on the next episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.